Hello, everyone. Of course, it's politics o'clock, and you know what it is. As we go into the 2027 general election, there are a lot of projections that will be going on. One of them here is from Ose Aneni. He says, and this is what he has to say on his Twitter hand. He said, to be honest, I was pleasantly surprised to see Peter Obi finally playing pragmatic politics. Kwankwaso gives him a northern inroad he never had, and Kano's vote share alone makes him nationally competitive if 2023 numbers hold. Let me just quickly say something here. For one who was an insider and also for a lot of work, a lot of people did. 2023, Kwankwaso was approached, was the person that really wanted him to be running mate to Peter Obi. A lot of people, I always say, like, anybody who was anybody in Nigeria that was supporting Peter Obi literally spoke to Kwankwaso on that thing. But at the end of the day, it never happened. And you saw in a recent interview that Kwankwaso did, he said his daughter, one of his daughters, even mentioned it to him that, hey, you need to deputize for this man, be on the same ticket and let it go. But sometimes when it is not time, it's not time. I remember doing a very heartfelt, let me call it beggy video, because I think in my whole life of doing videos or whatever, I've never done a video that where I'm literally pleading with someone to say, hey, please, that video was actually in Hausa, please just deputize for this man. There were many examples that I brought then, and I used Joe Biden as an example, looking at how he deputized for Barack Obama, even though he was older than Barack Obama, had more experiences, had been a senator many times. All of those criteria that you see with Kwankwaso at that. I say he deputized, and then what then happened was that even after Obama had finished, he allowed someone else to run. It was later that he came and he became president. And I was saying to Kwankwaso then, after Peter Obi, you then have a huge opportunity to be able to go on and do it. That's looking at 2031, which is where we're going to now. But of course, it never did happen. So it's not as if Peter Obi never wanted to do that. It was something that he actually wanted. That was why you saw Doyi Okupe being the placeholder in terms of having me waiting up until the last moment. That Kwankwaso did not, and then Peter Obi went with Dirty Baba Ahmed, which for me fantastic choice, great choice. Put made that ticket a very credible, serious ticket. Unlike if you don't have like a running mate. So whatever it is that Dirty is doing today, for me, I always focus on the fact that at the time that we had him, he was great choice. I mean, he brought a lot, just by being on that ticket and running in that election. And then let me continue with what Ose Aneni says. It is a shrewd move, arguably as audacious as Bat's Muslim gambit in 2023, if not quite as high stakes. But the OK ticket energy, currently the highest in the race, matched only perhaps by a phantom GEJ bid, is not the story. Let me just also put in at the GEJ bid, because there's a lot of talk that Goodluck Ebele Jonathan is going to run for office and all of that. And with Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, it's not just him saying, oh, I'm going to run for one term. He can't run more than one term. And so a lot of people feel that the North will want to have that in terms of going with someone that they know only has one term, so that you're not spoiling the whole dynamics. And as they go into 2027, he will not be able to run. That's what people feel. And then there are people who romanticize the fact that, oh, during Jonathan's time, the price of fuel was ABCD, and then now it is this. Probably he's going to return it to that place. But that's not the way economics work. Like I said, even at that Jonathan's time was the worst at that time until Buhari came. Buhari became the worst. And nobody, if you see prices during Buhari now, compare them to prices during Tinubu, Tinubu's time is not the worst. And like I always say to people, the fact that today's own is the worst doesn't mean the other one was not bad, or the other one, was not as bad. And if they come on, they're going to continue the nonsense that they had before. But sometimes Nigerians tend to romanticize things, and instead of us going for, okay, this is what we can see, we're just making it based on faith, or whatever. But anyway, that's what it is. He said the story, according to Ose, and then he said the story is what a fragmented opposition does for the incumbent. In the first past the post system, a competitive but divided field favors the ruling party. The only path the opposition has from here is the one they already mapped and abandoned, return to the Ibadan Declaration, swallow their individual ambitions, and coalesce behind a single candidate. And I think for me here, what I would say here is that, yes, as much as a divided opposition, and I do agree with that, favors the ruling party. What I also want us to understand as citizens is that we must understand that we have been the opposition all this while, and it is now the turn of Nigerian citizens to actually be the opposition. I did a video on that. I think that was yesterday or the day before yesterday. If you check my YouTube handle at Aisha Isufu TV, you will see that there. To say I did this video to say citizens should play opposition. Stop waiting for opposition party to unite. Why don't we as citizens unite and say, hey, irrespective of party, this is the person that we want to vote for. Then we sit down and we vote for that person. We defend our votes and then we move on, rather than waiting for opposition, that never seems to happen. And then he continues by saying a VP concession will most certainly have to be part of that negotiation. There's enough time between now and November to demonstrate that single candidate should be. I also agree, yes, opposition can decide to say, okay, they are voting for a single candidate. This is even a better time to have that conversation. There's enough time to be able to have that coalesce and say, okay, we are all voting for this particular party, this person that is in this candidacy, rather than in the whole opposition bringing in their fragmented candidates. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, let citizens be their opposition. Fortunately for the incumbent, sadly for the opposition, none of this is likely to happen. Nigerian politicians carry the heaviest egos in the world, and none of the dramatic personnel has shown the ability to conceptualize a greater good that does not center their own personal ambition. I totally agree with it. There's so much, ambition, ego, and all of that. People wanting for them to be their own. Nobody is focusing on the bigger picture, the greater good, and say, hey, I don't need to be on the ballot paper. If whatever it is, let go and then move on. That's not something that a lot of Nigerian politicians are very good at. But in my own case, this is the time for citizens to play opposition and actually, hold the four aces and do something about it. It is at this time that we have to ensure that we are finding out. I don't even know how long this video is right now. I don't want to go overboard. But at this time, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.